I'm Jim Pence, and we're going to work on some watercolors today. I thought it might be a little bit more fun to do something that would actually look like a painting that you can practice with and have some fun with. If you notice here, I've got some just different jagged lines going across the paper. This is going to be a picture of a bunch of overlapping mountain ranges, and you've probably seen pictures like that where the mountain range in the back is very kind of light colored, almost foggy, and then it gets a little darker as you come closer to the front of the painting. Well, we're going to do that today, and it's going to give you a chance to practice with the kind of watercolor control that we spoke about last week. And it's always more fun to practice on something that's going to look like something when you're done with it. So for starters, get a small piece of watercolor paper, and then draw some lines across, just like this. It's good to have them overlapping here, like this mountain peak is going up and hiding the mountain range behind. Same here, and then we've got a little overlap working here. It just adds a little visual interest if you've got that overlap working. Now I drew mine in permanent ink, mostly because it makes it easier for the camera to pick it up. You don't have to use ink for yours. Just use a pencil and go very lightly, just dark enough for you to be able to see the lines. Don't press down hard, because if you do, then you'll never get the pencil back out. And of course, it's okay to use with do like I did with the permanent ink. As a matter of fact, sometimes it adds a little dimension to the painting. Here's a version of that kind of a painting that I did a while back, and all of the lines in it are done with that permanent ink. So you can do kind of a watercolor and ink drawing, and it actually looks quite nice. But today, just use pencil. I'm going to be using my soft pan or moist pan watercolors. Again, those are a little higher end than the kind you buy in Walmart or Target or whatever, but they're a good quality, a lot of good color, and we're going to just have some fun. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to do the sky, and to do the sky, I'm going to actually turn the paper. I'm left-handed. It makes it a whole lot easier for me to just do this by turning the paper a little bit, and I'm going to go right down the edge, and I have to do this fairly quickly because the paper will start drying if I take too much time. But I'm going to paint with clear water right along the top edge of my mountains. And the reason I'm doing it so carefully is I really don't want my sky colors to come down into the mountain range itself. So I've gone along the edge. Now I'm going to move a little faster, bring in some color here. Now whenever you're doing a sort of a wet wash to give yourself a nice cloudy type sky, you have to move fast. You want to make sure that the surface of the paper is nice and wet, but remember, again, you want it kind of glistening wet. You don't want it dripping wet. I'm using Arches 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. I've said it before, and I will say it probably till you get tired of hearing me say it. The better the paper, the better your results are going to be. So don't skimp when you buy watercolor paper. Okay, so I've got that going there. I'm going to just go into my blue, and just going to get it wet. And I'm pretty much, this little paper here is kind of it shows the different colors. I know what the colors are, so I'm going to go into my blue, come over here, get a little bit of water, come in with my blue a little bit more. This is a cobalt blue, is the name of the color. Okay, and with it still wet, I'm going to just come in and apply the color to my sky. One thing that you want to keep in mind, and you can find this out just by going outside on a clear day and looking at the sky, the color gets deeper the higher you go in the sky. So I want to start with my darkest color up here, or my deepest, strongest value, if you will. I'm just going to come across really nice solid color. I'm going to come back into the color, get a little bit more intense there. And then I'm going to come in and just kind of speckle some of these other places. I'm going to leave some white, because the white's going to be clouds. Okay, but I remember I want it to be not so dark up toward the top. Okay, I'm going to stop with that, and I'm just going to do what I call my steering wheel technique, which is turning it. I'm going to hold the paper straight up and down. I know you can't see that very well right now. Okay, now you'll notice near the bottom some of that water is collecting. I'm going to blot my brush out here a little bit. And as I do that, then I'm going to just come in and dab these places where the water is collecting so I don't have a puddle. Alright, now I'm going to come in pretty much with a dry brush. I'm going to sort of redirect the color a little bit. I dry my brush out again. I'm going to come in with my Magic Baby Wipes. I'm just going to dab in a little bit in certain of these places and pull some of the color out so I can sort of have a cloud feel. Okay, and you can work it and rework it, but sometimes you work too much and you just kind of lose everything you were trying to do. I've got about as much sky as I think I want right now, because the sky isn't going to be my primary focus. Sky is just kind of there. I just wanted it to be a little interesting. I kind of bring a little of that paint or that water right down to that edge there. It was hanging loose, and that's going to be pretty much as I'm going to do. Now, before I go on, I'm going to dry my paper. I use a hair dryer. You can either just wait for it to dry or you can use a hair dryer. But I'm going to dry my paper, and then we'll start with the first mountain. So pause your video if you'd like to, and we'll be back in a few minutes, and maybe by that time you have dried your paper as well. Alright, my sky is dry, and I've already mixed some color here. I've mixed together sort of a neutral gray, used alizarin crimson, which is that color there, and Prussian blue, and a little touch of burnt sienna, which is that one there. And now I'm going to come in and start to do my first most distant mountain range. Now again, if you look at nature around you, you'll see that the further away objects are, particularly mountains, their color tends to be more of a grayish, even a purplish tint. So I'm going to just come in here. Got a very nice light gray, and so there's not going to be a lot of strong color here. So I want these to be kind of off in the distance. And when you're doing a painting, if you put strong colors back in the back, then that's going to pull that object to the front. It's going to look, even though it's positioned in the back, it's going to look and feel like it's right up in the person's face who's looking at the picture. Okay, there's some real distant mountains there, just kind of a nice light gray. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to blot my brush out a bit. I come over here and I want to strengthen that gray a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more alizarin in there. Of course, now we got a nice purplish tone. I don't want it quite that purple though, so I'm going to clean my brush out, blot, come over again to my Prussian blue. Okay, now I've got a somewhat darker tone. Just one more. I'm going to add a touch of burnt sienna in there to gray it down a little bit more. Okay. So now I'm going to come in with my second set of mountains here. A little stronger color. Now you'll notice I'm getting some bleed back there, or maybe you can't notice. I'm not sure how well that shows up on the video right now. But it's because I didn't dry my mountains in the back. If you don't want that to happen, then you definitely want to make sure that you dry in each stage. I don't particularly mind right now because it's pulling again a little of this color back into those other mountains, and it kind of unifies them a little bit, but it doesn't, you know, there's not so much color going back in there that it's going to ruin the distance effect. Okay, I've gone across, kind of like we did last week. Now I'm going to clean my brush out. I'm going in with clear water, and I want to soften these down just on the edge, going right along the edges of the color and bringing it down to the next layer of mountains. And you can have a lot of fun with this. It's pretty easy. Actually got some color there. I really wanted to work more with water, not color. There we go. Now see right there, there's a good mistake. I brought too much water in, and see what's happening here? I'm getting what's called a blossom, and that's because the water is going back in and it's diluting all that other color. Okay, so that's not really what we want to happen there. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to blot a little bit. That's a nice thing with watercolors too. Again, a lot of people are afraid of watercolors and say, oh, it's just unforgiving and it's difficult to control, but you actually have a fair amount of freedom to go back in and correct and fix things. So I've got a dry brush now, and I'm just going to kind of soften that. Come back in here, have a little blossom there, and not really blossom here, but kind of a hard edge. Okay, now I'm going to leave this for just a little while because that's still pretty wet, so I'm going to go and work on my next step. So we're going to come in and go a little bit darker, again a little bit more intense color. That was alizarin crimson. Okay, that's a Prussian blue. Okay, good strong colors, and a touch of burnt sienna. Okay, give it a little bit of an earthy tone. Okay, now I'm going to come back in again, a little stronger color even this time. Now what I'm doing this time to try to avoid those blossoms and the bleed back is I'm leaving a very tiny edge, dry edge between my mountain ranges. The other way, like I already said, would be to go back and just dry the paper. Okay, this brush is almost too big for that little area there. I'll come back in with a smaller one here in a minute. Okay, so got that. I'm going to clean that brush out. Now I'm going to take a smaller round brush, okay, like that, get it damp, blot it off, and come back in and pull again. Need a little bit more water. Didn't get it quite damp enough. Pull these edges down. Just like that. Okay, one more. All right. Now I think I'm going to come back in and finish what I was doing up here. Just a little bit. Bring that down, just a little bit of water. Okay, I want to be careful because I don't want that blossom. Okay, soften that edge down a little bit. And it will come in now, and hopefully the mountains right behind have had enough time to dry out. I'm going to come back in here and get rid of that white line. Okay, now we've got one more mountain range to paint. That's going to be my biggest one in the front. I'm going to go to a fairly nice size flat brush. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing I've done before. I'm going to strengthen my color. Come in here, put some more alizarin crimson. Okay, at this point I'm going to be using almost straight color. Not quite, but it's going to be pretty close. Okay, come in here, get some more Prussian blue. And clean that out. Just a touch burnt sienna. All right, now I'm going to come in with very strong color up front. Coming across, get that little overlap effect in there. A little bit more. I'm actually also going to add in a little bit of almost straight alizarin and Prussian blue, just for the fun of it, to add a little bit more color. And then I'm going to do like I've done before. Come down here, pull these down. Careful again against getting too much water in there, as you'll get the old blossom effect. Get a little bit more color. And at that point, I'm going to stop. Well, I might want to come back in and again kind of add a little bit more color to these ones up front. Maybe even add a little bit more definition. Just to make it interesting. I'm improvising right now. I really don't have a plan. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of light and shadow and basically playing and having fun. And that's what watercolors are all about. You can have a lot of fun just playing with different colors, different aspects of things. You could take this and rework it, and I would if I was going to be making it as a finished painting. Then I would be going back in and playing a bit more. But I just wanted mostly for you to see the idea of doing several mountain ranges and little differentiating between them with this kind of little foggy effect here, and learning to control your color and to have some fun with it. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll get some watercolor paper and pencils, or not pencils, but brushes, and try this out. I'll be back next week with a different tip. Until then, this is Jim Pence for See the Light, and don't forget, keep drawing and have fun.